All right, it is just about 6:03. We're ready to start TWiP episode 520. Thanks to everyone that is joining us in the chat room. Make sure you guys interact in there and get your questions in there. Christopher Berry is the TWiP community manager. He is monitoring that area and making sure that any questions that need answering, he's going to make sure that they're funneled into our Google Doc so that myself and our hosts can answer them. So we're going to get started right now with the show, guys. Please stand by. Here we go. On this episode of This Week in Photo, it is all about digital storytelling. This is TWiP. So on This Week in Photo and many other outlets, I've been harping for the past year or so about digital storytelling and how photographers should be moving more towards telling stories about photography and having fun with that stuff. So what I decided to do with this show was have a conversation and talk about digital storytelling and kind of get into the idea of what is it? How do you tell stories with your camera? How do you tell what's the best way to use the digital technology that you have at your fingertips to tell stories, and what's the wrong way to tell stories? So joining me to do that are a couple of friends of mine. I've got Giulio Sciorio, who was in here. I think he dropped off. Did we lose Giulio, Craig?
I don't see Julio, and I don't see a live feed of you in Zoom. I just see your static photo. So
right, yeah. You should
see me?
I
Because
see
I don't
you.
even see
Yeah,
it.
you're fine. Giulio dropped off, so we're gonna wait for Giulio to come back in there. And guys, in the live stream, what we're gonna do, I think Giulio had some technical difficulties. We're gonna restart the show. I'm gonna go back into standby mode so that we can let Giulio rejoin, which is the joy of doing this live. So that gives more people a chance to join in. So please stand by. Hang on for us. I'm going to get Giulio Sciorio back in, and then we will restart the show. Please stand by. All right, folks. Sorry about that. We got Julio back. Julio said something negative about Google, so they cut his internet. They cut his internet connection, but he's back. He's back on standby now. So we're gonna start the show now. Thanks for your patience, everyone. And here we go. We're gonna start TWiP 520 once again. Here we go. All right. In this episode of This Week in Photo, it's all about digital storytelling. This is TWiP. All right, folks. So if you've been following me or if you've listened to any of the This Week in Photo episodes over the last couple of months, you know that I've been harping on this whole idea of telling stories with your photography. That's what it's all about. We're digital storytellers. We have cool tools to do that. And here joining me to talk about that stuff is Mr. Julio Shorio and Mr. Craig Strong. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey, doing great.
Howdy.
Julio, you look like you're sweating over there, man.
I'm not sweating though. I naturally glow.
It's your natural glow. All right, guys. Before we start, Craig, I'm going to start with you, man. What's give that just a quick introduction and what are some things that you're working on, and maybe some Lens Baby specials since you are the guy pulling the strings at that company.
Yeah, I'm Craig Strong. I'm let's see. Historically, I'm a photojournalist, so that was my trade before I started making my own lenses, and everybody wanted one. So I started making Lens Babies. So, well, not everybody, but enough people that it made sense. So I've been doing that since full-time since 2006. And lately the Lens Baby's been focusing and on our optic swap system. So we've got a line of optics that go inside of lenses. I don't see a lens around, and so that you can buy a full lens with an optic and put lenses and optics together, and you can juggle them. I've only got two, so I can only juggle, but I'm not going to do that. Anyhow, we got a sale going through May 31st, and go check that out. Lots of good deals.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm looking at the notes here. So you got 15% off optics, 30% off twist, $30 off twist, $50 off Composer Pro 2, and $100 off all kits. That's cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. And that's some good stuff.
All right.
Way to start your summer.
There you go. Little baby. Well, thanks, man. Thank you for coming on, and I'm looking forward to your input on
glad to be here.
The featured topic and some of the news topics that are going on. Julio Shorio, man, what is going on with you? What is happening? You look like you are royalty sitting over there. What is happening? You in Wakanda?
I'm chilling on my poncho and my 70s velour throne.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's not sweat on your forehead.
No, it's not. Like it's the glow.
That is.
I'm just saying that's a lot of warmth that you got going on there.
Yeah, I got some. I'm experimenting with an LED light that is super warm.
Love it. Well, welcome to the show, man. What do you have going on? I know you're about to relaunch something pretty big, right?
Yes, I am relaunching Small Camera Big Picture on Tuesday the 29th.
Cool.
Finally, yes, I'm super excited. I was going to release it right before Mother's Day. I got somebody did a little hit and run with my last car.
Yeah.
Cairo and all that stuff later. Back on track.
All right. Well, cool. Welcome, man. I'm looking forward to talking about the new yet old small camera big picture, right?
Right on.
Very cool. All right, guys, before we dive into the show, I want to thank our sponsor for this episode of This Week in Photo, and that's our friends over at Format.com. Format is the sponsor, and they are offering a 1-month free trial, no credit card required, to kick the tires, play with it for a full month. Normally, it's 2 weeks. They extended it to a full month. And then after that, if you want to continue with Format.com, you get 25% off your subscription fee for the rest of your life, or for the rest of their life, whichever comes first. So definitely check it out. They are a really cool portfolio site. They've got features like client proofing, blogging, e-commerce, all that stuff built into it. So definitely give them a look. All right, guys, let's dive into the news. So our featured topic obviously is digital storytelling, but there's some interesting news items that hit. We don't always have news to talk about on This Week in Photo. This week we have news to talk about. The big news is Instagram. So Instagram has rolled out a mute feature as well as a all caught up feature. And I've been seeing buzz on Twitter about the mute feature. People are saying that now they can use Instagram again because they're able they're able to shut people up. Craig, what do you think about this? Are you active on Instagram, and do you care about a mute feature?
I look at Instagram. I'm not very active as far as posting, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times my feed is just full of people that I haven't seen their work in a long time, and I don't necessarily want to see it
Yeah.
much. So
Yeah. No, I think I mean, I don't know if that goes along with the whole, this increased privacy and the increased, like, what is it, the GPRS, the European privacy standards that are rolling out, that we have to send out an email for TWiP and all that stuff to say, hey, re-opt into our email list and all that stuff. So there's a lot of privacy stuff happening. Julio,
yeah,
do you care about this? Do you care about the mute feature?
Not really, because I don't trust Instagram and Facebook, and I think that they're doing that just to help keep people around more. I don't have it installed on any of my devices, and I haven't posted in I would say months. Maybe a month or so, but um, I'm waiting for Flickr and SmugMug, now that they've made their announcement to come back full force.
Hmm.
I certainly trust, as a photographer, I trust SmugMug far more than I trust Facebook.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and just keep in mind, people, that you are a product on social media. Okay, you're a product, and you're being monetized. So
Yeah, it's funny
no,
you say that. I had a conversation with I did an interview with Josh Halftel. He's the mobile product manager over at Adobe. We were just talking yesterday, and in the interview I asked him his thoughts on privacy now, considering all this crazy stuff going on with Facebook and Google, and like, how does Adobe approach the idea of privacy when they are vying to have all your images in their cloud so that you can use Lightroom Mobile and have access to all your images anywhere, anytime. His response, and you should watch the interview, I'll link to it, but his response was, you got to be very politically correct when you're tiptoeing around these billion-dollar companies, but he was basically saying that if you're not paying, you're the product, right? So Adobe for Creative Cloud charges for the Creative Cloud a subscription fee. That's where their revenue comes from. So they don't have to monetize you in other ways, is what he was saying. Craig, what do you think about that? Do you subscribe to that? Do you believe that?
I mean, that makes sense. I I find that I go to social media for some really specific things, and then I leave. And so I'm not a big contributor outside of certain groups and communities. Um, in terms of the value, I would much rather pay money than to have my information shared. So yeah, there is a lot of distrust there
Yeah.
for just jumping in full force and sharing everything I have to share. I mean, we've come a long ways from not being willing to ever give up a negative to a single one of my clients in the late 90s, and then now looking at photography, that it's just a given that you share all the originals. Now, it's nice that you can keep a set of originals as well, which wasn't the case with negatives, but all that data out there that someone like me, I thought, well, if I don't control that, then I don't have a living for the rest of my life. And that's, as a photographer in the 80s and 90s, I was thinking my portfolio someday is going to support me. Well, that's out the window with stock photography, really, the valuation of that being down.
Yeah.
But it is supporting somebody if I'm putting it out there on social media.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. The jury's still out. it's almost like trying to build a house on quicksand, because the landscape keeps changing. All the different options that we have keep changing over and over again. Everybody wants our assets, and they all want us to put all our entire digital lives in the cloud. But at the same time, we're seeing these security breaches left and right, and Target exposing our credit card information, Chase doing this, AT&T doing this crazy stuff. There's like all this stuff that's always stirring, and that's the tip of the iceberg. You wonder what's going on below that, what's really going on, which makes me scared to like just put anything on in the cloud these days, to be honest with you. And then Amazon, what was it? It was announced that Amazon either today or yesterday was working with the government to sell image recognition technology or facial recognition technology, which is scary.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Julia, are you scared of this?
I want to say I'm scared. I'm cautious about it. We have a lot of toll roads here in Austin, and they take your picture when you go by. I always put my sun visor down, like, I'm, and people will say, well, if you're not doing anything bad, you got nothing to hide. But you know what? I don't want to be tracked.
Right.
It's none of anyone's damn business what I want to do. If I want to go take a picture somewhere, as long as it's on public land, I want to be free to go do that.
Right.
Instagram through their manipulative team of psychologists and coders have brainwashed people that they have to post things every day, and they have to look a certain way, and it's all bullshit, man. It's like you have to, as a photographer, just please yourself, and know that anytime you put something on social media, it is up for grabs. Whether you say, hey, I own the copyright or not, whether the TNC in line 500 and something in paragraph 88 says you own it, it's still, good luck if someone ganks it. And just know that you're monetizing it. People got to be cautious about Instagram. That's why I'm a big proponent of your own, just make your own website, and that is your own social media. Like you're talking about format, sponsoring a show, which is a great platform. I'm on Squarespace. SmugMug is a really good platform. All those are your social network. That is your audience. No one could say, unless you stop paying the platform that you're on, no one could say, hey, your audience now can only see X amount of posts per month. If you want them to see more posts, you got to pay them. They can't do any of that. Instagram, they can do it in a heartbeat. And then you got all these photographers and indie filmmakers rushing to try to make a living, like on YouTube and whatever. And man, they change those algorithms all the time, and your eggs are all in the basket, and you're making your living off that. Maybe you're feeding your family because somehow you got lucky, and you're in a Peter McKinnon video or something. You're like, what's up, Austin, Texas, and I'm Julio. And then the next day it's like they change your algorithm. Boof, I'm out of business.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. I mean, it's I used to call it, and I still do call it, digital sharecropping, or crashing on your friend's couch. That's kind of what like these free services are. It's when they decide that it's time for you to go, it's time for you to go. You don't have much recourse, or if you do something or say something that they don't like, they can bring the hammer down on you. But that's a whole show we can go into. The next thing I want to talk about is Kodak, or the next thing is Kodak. So Kodak, in Europe at least, announced their single-use daylight. They call it the Kodak Daylight. It's a single-use disposable camera that uses film. You remember those, right? You remember those?
Oh yeah. Still have a pile of them that my kids took to summer camp that we never.
Well, good. Well, I want to talk about that, Craig. Well, Craig, so you're clearly in the target market for this. What do you think of this? Is this because when I see things like this, and I did some contract work for Kodak a while ago, and when I see things like this, I'm thinking, well, digital phones, we have different ways to shoot. Why are we rolling back to film, especially disposable film? Or am I wrong?
No, you're spot on. It feels like there is an opportunity there, and I think that opportunity's been maybe exhausted by Lomo and Fuji and those working in analog that have are enticing people with a community and selling something that is more than just the actual product, that you can be part of something that is bigger than you. I don't think that Kodak is doing that. I think they're I don't think the Kodak brand has the ability to do that in the short run. Anyhow, they don't have a foundation for that. So if they're going to make that something that is attractive to a big enough audience to make it work, how is this going to be something that they could even share? Like, I don't even know. Like,
Yeah.
there's not that many places to develop and scan still in Portland that I could share it online, let alone develop the film and print it analog.
Well, knowing what Kodak did before, when this was kind of a thing, and people were having these single-use cameras at weddings and events and those sorts of things, was when you purchased the camera, you got all the processing, all that stuff was wrapped into it. So you just basically drop it in the mail, and it went back to Kodak, some magical Kodak place, and they would process it, and then in the mail several days later, you'd get prints. But I don't know, Julio. I mean, I think about that, and it's romantic from the standpoint of, oh yeah, I remember this, and wondering if the image is going to come out, and all that stuff. But this is we just got finished talking about Instagram. This is the Instagram world. This is the immediate gratification, the attention deficit riddling sort of world that we live in. Can you expect people to slow down and go back to analog? Would you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge seller. I think they're going to sell a ton of these things, and it's mainly because it's like, so there's this pushback on social media. Facebook knows it. That's why they're rolling out these changes to Facebook. That's why they're rolling out these changes to Instagram. If they're making a move, if the biggest social players are making a move, it's not because that what they're doing was working. It's because what they're doing is starting to no longer work, and they're trying to keep our eyes on there. So, the thing is, if you look at social media, it entices us to live in this web of lies, to take pictures in front of a Ferrari or in front of a fake ass Louis Vuitton bag. Who cares, man, about that stuff? You know what I mean? Whereas the disposable camera is a photographic honesty in its purest form. You have no control over exposure. You got no built-in filters. You can't change lenses. You can't do nothing. All you got to do, you crank that lever, and after like 3 or 4 exposures, it starts to eat away at the skin on your thumb, and you snap it.
Yeah.
It may look like shit. It may look like freaking awesome, but it's like a pure way of shooting. It's a way for people that are curious about film photography but have no photographic experience at all, or maybe are just intimidated, or for whatever reason don't want to shoot film in a dedicated camera to kind of dip their toe into it. And I think it's an excellent way.
I gotta say, I gotta call BS on that. I can't.
Really?
I gotta call BS, because I think we are squarely in digital and in a immediate gratification. And even you drew a circle around like these, the people that show their unrealistic best lives on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff. That's where the market, I think, is going, is towards that kind of immediate gratification, at least for that genre of photography. Like if people want to get into film and they want like you're saying, they want the romanticism of having the limitations and the chemicals and, and shooting film and the unsureness about what's going to come out, they can get a proper film camera, and shoot and use proper lenses on it, or even a little point and shoot and do that.
But you're talking from the standpoint of a photographer that actually, you can actually load a roll of film. Okay. A lot of people that are in their early 20s or even older just have never even touched a film camera. When they open it up, and they're just this curtain thing and these rails and these spokes on the back, and they're like, oh, what the hell? I don't know. Or, you know what I mean? Or they try to load like a Leica from underneath. It's like super intimidating. This is a way for someone to get some film, get it out of their system. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So basically what you're saying, Julio Shorio, of Small Camera Big Picture, is that you don't care about the environment and the giant continent of floating plastic.
I don't think that's what he said.
He knows.
Hey, man,
I disagree, but I definitely don't think that's what I'm saying.
Julio, the quote from this podcast will be, Julio Shorio hates the environment.
I hate Earth. I hate Earth.
We should invest in Tesla so we can go populate
Earth.
Mars because we're done with Earth, right?
I'm off to Mars, man. No, the thing is, like, I love digital photography. I mean, I shoot film on occasion. For me, it's when I shoot film, it's more of like therapy. It like really forces me to be present, and it forces me to do everything.
Yeah.
And it makes me appreciate the digital tools more. That's kind of how I use film. But I think a lot of people want to explore film that haven't, or maybe they've not touched it in a long time. And I think that they'll at least try this camera. It's kind of like impossible buying what's left of Polaroid.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought one of those One Step 2s. I thought, hey, why not? I got all this impossible film. I know the pictures are going to look like crap, but that's okay. Sometimes you want some crap.
But I'm a
There's the quote.
Spoken like a true dung beetle, right? But when I think of it, when I think of that kind of thing, I think of I have the Fuji Instax, and people are talking about that in the chat room. Stephen Scharf is in there talking about the Fuji Instax. I have one of those, and I love it. In fact, I used it to send a print to someone, a couple days ago. Those are fantastic if you want that instant gratification, shoot, then print kind of experience. But if you're introducing the idea of shoot, not sure what you shot, drop it in the USPS, which is its home bag of worms, right? You drop it in the USPS, then, or in the case of Europe, whatever their postal system is, it goes back to Kodak, gets processed, printed, and then shipped back to you. That's a long loop, man.
As mediocre photographs.
Wait a second. Can't you just bust that thing open and bring it to your local
See,
lab?
Now, if you're going to bust it open, just go buy a camera and buy proper film.
Wait.
Right?
Craig, you're in Portland, right?
So? Yeah, I'm a professional in Portland, and there's not a single Fred Meyer, which is the big Kroger in town, that had they really did have the best photo processing. And was consumer facing. Not a single one processes film anymore. They send it out.
Kidding.
It's there, and they send it out to a couple of labs, Blue Moon Photography. But you're not going to buy this Kodak if you're going to Blue Moon and having real prints made. We've got some great photo processors, but they're just not consumer facing at all.
Wow,
Yeah.
we have a bunch here in Austin. I mean, we
really
have a bunch. Wow, is Texas more progressive than Portland?
Maybe in this one area.
Yes. Here we go. It's always got to be an or, right? It's got to be an or.
Texas.
All right, Julio, I'm branding you in this episode. Your brand is going to be the dung beetle that hates the environment. Julio's.
I thought we were going to do like sometimes you want some crap. Or I see Steven says,
sometimes that's good. I sign off on that.
Sometimes you want some crap.
Sometimes
or Steven says, Matt Damon,
hey, potatoes. Crap potatoes.
Matt Damon.
All right, guys, let's that's enough for the news. Let's move on and talk about today's featured topic, which is
wait. I want to say one thing. Which Kodak is this? Because Kodak's name has been sold.
It's Alaris. It's the Alaris division.
Well,
yeah.
no idea. No idea what that means. But like it's not part of anything bigger than like it used to be. So
no, Kodak filed bankruptcy, got split up, sold some assets to a company called Alaris, and then it became Kodak Alaris. Eastman Kodak is still in Rochester, headquartered in Rochester, New York, and they still have their film factory and a whole bunch of other things that they're working on. But they're separate entities completely. So, but from a consumer-facing standpoint, we just see Kodak and disposable film cameras. So, we don't have to get that deep under the covers to figure out what's going on there.
I'm telling you, you're going to be seeing these things in Urban Outfitters here like tomorrow.
I'll eat my hat. I will eat my hat,
$20
Julio.
a pop, and it'll sell like crazy.
Julio, you're just trying to be a nonconformist. I see what's going on here. You're just trying to you're like one of those pundits on CNN. You're just trying to say the opposite of what everybody else said.
Hey, I didn't say I'm going to buy one. I meant saying I'm going to buy one because I got film cameras. No, I got film cameras aplenty. I got like gobs of film, but I do think they have their place at least for the time being. if anything, okay, hell, I hate to go back to Instagram, but if they get it into some influencers' hands, you know,
Yeah. All right.
that
Well,
kind of thing. So
we'll wait and see. We'll wait and
yeah,
see.
don't wait too long; it'll happen. I'm telling
All
you.
right, let's move on to the featured topic du jour, and that is digital storytelling. I'm excited to talk about this, and let me set it up for you guys. Set up the conversation. So here's the argument: is is the idea of just shooting, going out and shooting because you like shooting and it's therapeutic for you. That's valid and that's great. I do that all the time. It's fun, but wouldn't it be cooler if you had an idea for a story that you were illustrating when you went out shooting, or put on, even if you're doing street photography, instead of going out on the streets of Paris or Chicago or New York or Austin or wherever and just taking random pictures, that serendipitously present themselves to you, if you went out and told a story of homelessness on the streets, or even something less heavy like, hey, I'm interested in doorknobs today. Let's do the history of doorknobs in Austin, and that's what I'm going to shoot today. Where do you guys fall on it? Craig, I want to throw it to you first. Like, does adding story to your overall photographic mission make sense? Or is it putting unnecessary kind of ties and weight on you and putting you in a box? What do you think?
I think it makes sense. And my background in photojournalism meant that I always had an editor expecting a story out of me. And it needed to be either one photo with multiple moments and telling a larger story, or a series of photos, which was rare. And so I think the ultimate challenge for me always has been, how do I get that one moment that sums up what's going on? However, now with video and being able to add sound and share it, on any device that everybody can view. I mean, you think about, like, when I was shooting weddings and telling the story of the day, and I would deliver a DVD. Sometimes those DVDs wouldn't even work on the client's DVD player, and so they weren't very accessible. And then I was able to post them online, but they were tiny. And then eventually YouTube came around, and eventually YouTube got more resolution. And by that time, I was at a wedding. So, but now you can put a slideshow together. You can add audio to it. There's a lot of apps that will just automate the whole process. For me, on a personal level, it's much more meaningful to go out saying, I'm going to tell a story of my day. I'm going to take a road trip with my boys throughout the West in mid-June. And that's one of the things I want to do. I want to have a 2 to 5 minute show when we're done with that 10 days, and be able to have audio from the trip and photos from the trip, and just be able to tell a quick story that people can look in and see part of my life.
Yeah, and I wonder the best way to approach that for the folks that are watching and listening to this is the best way to approach that going in, like, if you're going to, Craig, if you're going on a trip with your boys, going in kind of with a, not even a written out or sketched out storyboard, but kind of an idea of a beginning, ending, and an end of the kind of story you want to tell.
Yep.
Or should you just be thinking, yeah, I'm going to make a story out of this when I get home, so I'm going to shoot everything and then I'll synthesize it like Rumpelstiltskin into something later?
That's yeah. I'll never put that story online. Like, I think it does a couple things for me to think about it ahead of time, to say, okay, this is what I'm going in. I'm only here to tell this one story. It lets me put my camera down and enjoy the rest of the time, or pick my camera up and tell another story, or take a moment here or there, and not feel like I've got to get everything in, which is going to take me hours to edit and hours to get all the audio together. But if I go into it saying, okay, we're going to take a video, I'm going to have each of my 15-year-old boys, if they aren't too surly to do so at the moment, give me some sort of synopsis about where we're at on the trip, what they're enjoying, what's going on, and then move on, and be able to put photos with that audio, and then maybe some audio along in the moment. For me, going into it with the simplest of equipment, using my iPhone for the audio, and maybe even my moment lenses as one of the one of the capture devices to be able to get nice wide angles or telephotos, slight telephotos with the iPhone. The simpler it is, the better, and the less encumbered it is. Because I want to enjoy life. I've got 3 kids at home right now, and it's fleeting. They're all teenagers, and they're going to be gone soon. So I really don't want to be thinking about production of a story later that involves infinite numbers of photos.
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge, right? Because I feel like whole parts of my life personally I may have missed because I was looking at them through the viewfinder, right? So I
Yeah.
like being in the military, I've seen rocket launches and explosions and all this other crazy stuff happening, but I witnessed them through multiple pieces of glass. So I don't even feel like I don't even feel like I was there. I don't even feel like they're actual memories in my head. I have the images, but I don't remember like being there. Julia, I want to throw that part at you. Like if you're not looking at this from a client standpoint, but if you're just like personal projects, family, that kind of thing, and you want to apply story to it, should you like how do you reconcile being in the moment with being behind the camera?
That's a real difficult thing to balance, because you need to, you have to be present of what's in front of your camera to make a good image. Um, but as soon as you put that camera in front of your face, whether you're present or not, and regardless of what camera it is, there is some barrier. Since I've been a father, been documenting my son all day, pretty much every day, until my wife's like, time to put the camera down and kind of
Yeah.
just hang out with us. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm glad she says that, because I get that time to actually be part of the family. It's a difficult balance, but I think that having a background as an editorial photographer myself, you train yourself into telling a story, and it is powerful to add story to your work if that's part of your work. I think that if anybody does want to start telling a story, just go out with an intention. When I do photo walks, when I lead them, I give everybody a little card on a back. It says, it has an intention, and it may
Mm-hmm.
be like shadows or high key or sky or something, so that we're focusing our mind on that. And then even though you're focused on that one intention for that next 3 hours, you'll start to see other things. But you have to focus your mind. The and I get all kind of going in a little bit of a different direction here, but
Sure, go for it.
the beauty with digital photography is also kind of a trap. So the beauty is you can shoot all you want for the most part. The trap is that it's easy to become casual with the creation process. And when you become casual, it's like you kind of spreading your energy like a fine mist. You may get lucky, you may not get lucky, but there's how your creative growth is at that point is it's stunted and it's slowed. If you and there's times to do that, like if you're out with your buddies, you're having some drinks, you're not like thinking about photography necessarily, or you're a little inebriated or whatever. Or if you just want to be chill and not think about it and just have your camera with you, and whatever comes your way, there's a time and place for that. But if you want to grow photographically as an artist, you have to have some intention and focus to, okay, today I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to photograph. I'm going to meet 10 people. I'm going to photograph them with my X Pro 2 or whatever it is. I'm going to give them a print direct on the spot from my Instax, and I'm going to make 10 personal connections.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your intention. Or my intention is to go out and make black and white street portraits. There's some focus, as opposed to, I'm just going to walk around and, whatever.
And just aimlessly shoot.
Yeah. Then you're shooting a ton of stuff, and then you go back to edit it. You may get to it, you may not. And you look at it, you're like, God, it's all crap. Or even worse, you get something that's really awesome. You're like, oh, how did I get that? I want to make all my photos look like that. And you have no idea.
Yeah. And the other piece of this, and I want to shift gears to this for both of you guys, is so we've been talking kind of about, mostly for the most part, hobbyist stuff, family stuff, that kind of thing. But what if you shift gears and talk about social responsibility, as a photographer, and do we have a social responsibility to document the world around our little microcosms, right? So there's a million stories out there, like we were joking before about environmental issues, right? So there's a million stories around the environment that you could cover from your corner of the planet. political stories, scientific stories, on and on and on. There's all these different kinds of stories that we as image makers and digital storytellers could cover and spread to a wider audience, whether we have a following of 15 or 15,000 or 150,000, right? So Craig, do you think that like, let me put a finer point on it. What I see a lot from a lot of photographers, and not that I'm some, sage that's sitting on a mountain or anything, because I do the same thing, but what I see is we tend to shoot pretty pictures of flowers, of the docks, of, pretty people and, that kind of thing. But none of it has a story or any use behind satisfying the person that you're giving it to. Do you think it's time for photographers to maybe shift gears and start biting in a little bit and telling more important stories rather than just, hey, look at this cool bee pollinating another flower? What do you think?
Yes, but who's going to consume that?
Yeah.
I think
Facebook,
the challenge. Yeah, the challenge is people don't want to see. They don't go seeking out serious work because it used to come to you as one of the only media pieces that you got on your front porch, at least on Sunday mornings, that you got the newspaper.
mm-hmm.
That's not happening. And so now what's going to motivate people to see that? And I think a big part of that is putting it in a format. And as you were talking, I'm realizing, for instance, a year ago I went out and there's a local fishing. Well, they use fishing in the outdoors to get inner city kids in Portland, primarily in low-income families, out onto lakes and rivers that they'd never go to. And there's one weekend a year that Oregon has no licenses, just anybody can go fishing. And on that weekend, this nonprofit buses people out about 45 minutes out of town to this beautiful lake that's full of trout, full of bass, and provides, the companies fishing supply and guides come out there and supply everything they need to go fishing. Now, last year I documented this for a full day, got there just ungodly early in the morning, and all day long was shooting. I provided them with the photos on SmugMug and gave them instructions on how to download them. They didn't do anything with it. They had no idea what to do with this because none of them were graphic designers. None of them were the people that I'm used to working for as a photographer. So this year I'm going out there saying, okay, I'm going to put a series of individual stories that may be between 1 and 3 minutes long of these families that are out there talking in their own voice. It's going to be, I can post it to YouTube. If they want to share it, great. I'll make it public. And if they don't, that's fine. It's the nonprofits. But I think a big part of the problem is getting things to people that are of value and actually make a statement that they're willing to sit through and have some sort of value in terms of, okay, I want to be here. This is interesting. Because the people that made it interesting for us are unemployed now, or those jobs are gone. In the news and in newspapers and in magazines for the most part. And so now it's our job.
Yeah, I think it is. And Chris Berry says in the chat, he says he can't remember where you heard this, but I agree. Artists should reflect the goings on in their communities. I agree with that, and I want to make it too heavy. Like, oh, you have a camera, you saved up and bought a camera. Now you have all this weight of documenting everything that goes on in your neighborhood and sharing it with everybody else. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying more of, add a little bit of meat to the sandwich versus just bread of, hey, look at this pretty, perfectly exposed image. Julia,
and there's a lot of us that are trained in this that, for me, I just haven't done enough of it. I have not taken this to make a complete product. I can do that. I relied on my publishers and editors to do that for me before, and I can't do that anymore. And I have the ability, and doesn't take a lot of learning on my part to figure out the tools to do that. And so that's who I'm talking to, are people that have done this in the past and have been storytellers, and that's a responsibility that we have and need to pick that up more.
Yeah, and Stefan brings up a good point in the chat about we're being bombarded with a flood of images. Julio, how do you stand out in that flood of images? If you take the bait that I'm laying down here, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna start applying story to my work. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it or sees it, in the case of photography, does it actually exist? So how do they, should they put this extra effort in there to tell stories when potentially no one will see it?
Well, I think you're coming at it from the perspective of will people see it on social media?
Yeah.
And I don't know if, at least for myself, if I'm that interested in the masses of asses that are on social media. And I'm not talking about the people that are directly following me, because I talk to them. We have conversations. And I consider them more friends that happen to be on Facebook versus just the hordes of generic, creatively, people that are stuck, that come out, the trolls, and try not to please them, but more so it's the community, it's your individual community. So you may live in a small town, but your community may be like the school, maybe the church, or maybe the people at the corner store. That's your community, and focus on having an impact with your work in that community versus hey, I want to get on the front page of HuffPost and I want to be hot shit for like 30 minutes. I mean, that's very
fleeting.
I don't think people that are going to be interested in telling a story that truly are going to be telling a story, that are doing the work with photography, are interested in that kind of superficial attention. Well, for instance, I've done a few assignments around the end of last year that we're working with nonprofits that were documenting different processes, or is it processes? Well, whatever.
Depends on where you are, your proximity to the equator.
Processes. But one of which was called the Communities Table, and it was the city commissioned this 50-foot table made partially by different community groups. Mm-hmm. And the table is made of 300 or so planks of wood, and they would have these meetups or barbecues, or the city would pay for bands to come out and play music, and people to come out, and food trucks, and we did inner city stuff where these kids get these boards and they say, I want to see more clean water in Austin or whatever, and they write it on this board, and then a board becomes part of this table, and then a table got thrusted into this new park in the middle of downtown, so it wasn't hiding out. It was right there in people's faces that saw what the people wanted to see. And I was commissioned to document that process, the people filling out the stuff on the boards, the boards being cut, the table being assembled. And that had a positive impact on the community of people that would see the board and the people that participated in the board. The intention of that project wasn't to be hey, let's get a million likes on Instagram or whatever. Those things are nice, but those things are superficial and very surface level, and the other thing is, I think what we're talking about here, Frederick, is true photography, not what, this is photojournalism, documentary style photography. Street photography is real photography. It's not fashion photography or very over stylized and super retouched and composited photography, although those can tell a story. I think what we're talking about here is more honest work. You're capturing it, mm-hmm. You're getting it in camera to the best of your ability, doing the work that you need to in post to kind of finish it, versus manipulating it, adding, making a cover what is it? Is it Vanity Fair, or like Oprah's got like 3 arms or some crap like that? And,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
I agree. I agree. But I also think, there, no disrespect to other genres of photography outside of photojournalism. Not that one is real and one is the other. I think storytelling can apply to all genres of photography. I mean, if you're a birder and you're like, all I like to do is take pictures of different kinds of birds, you could weave a story into that, into, even if it's, a story, like you got a photo of a bird, even there's a story around how you got to that spot to get to that bird, or
well, sure.
how long you've been chasing this stupid bird across the country to get a shot of it, and you finally got the shot of the bird. So,
well, certainly that's powerful. That could be very powerful in itself. What I'm talking about is that type of photography, versus like you're photographing the bee on a white table, and you're going to cut it out and you're going to put it up on this flower, and the flower is going to be coming out of a giant building, and there's whatever that
that's something else. That's a different
2007
kind of
photography.
That's that's art. It's a different kind of art where you're using the world as clip art and you're bringing it together to synthesize something new. Craig, I want to throw this over to you now. So the other piece of this is presentation. So if you go down the road and you're like, hey, like you're talking about in the instance where you've made the decision to present finished 1 to 2 minute pieces to these people so they can better appreciate the shots or the work. Photographers that are out there are presented with so many choices on how to present and how to put their stuff online. Like format.com is a sponsor of this episode. So there's one. There's also SmugMug. There's Flickr. There's Pixie Set. I mean, it goes on and on and on, right? There's all these, and they're all pretty good. So if you're going to tell a story, what's the best tool, or what is a good tool to use in order to tell that story? Or is the answer, it depends? What do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot of tools out there, and honestly, because I do things manually, I've got an old version of QuickTime Pro that allows me to do all the editing except for the audio levels that I want to do, and I use Telephoto, which is I was introduced to 20 years ago by Kevin Kubota, and there's all these tools that work for me, and I think it's really important to automate this, even if those tools tend to be not quite as great as what you could do manually, like what I'm doing, because I went out and shot a friend of mine taking dinner to a homeless camp that's protected by the city and has garbage pickup and honey buckets that come in, and they have a safe place to live, and this friend of mine has been going in and photographing these people and this community and knows these people. So I went in and was his guest. I'd gone there with him once before. Even the tools that I know, they take a lot of time. And I was shooting with a new camera, and of course the RAWs didn't work with my old version of Lightroom because I'm not on CC, because I don't want to pay that money. And so, all these things, because I want to use the best tools, end up, and I'm cheap, end up being tedious, even for someone who knows those tools. So I think that those more automated systems that are out there that will allow you to put photos and video together with audio, and maybe you're not even really selecting what it's picking up, but it's putting something together. I mean, last night went out on a boat with my boys, and they were trying to kneeboard. Nobody ever got up because they'd never done it before, but they took a 15-second post or second, whatever it is that they're recording through Snapchat. I think it's 15 seconds. And it cut off the scream as the guy was going into the ice cold water, and it was the funniest video ever. And they were just laughing and laughing. They must have watched it 40 times. Nice. That was that limitation of that 15 seconds, and the fact that he even cut him off before he was fully in the water. It had a beauty to it, and it made it so that, bam, there it is. He didn't have to do any editing. He didn't have to convert any raw files. He didn't have to invest in anything else. It was just all there, and bam. And so while that's a very simplified example of that, I do think that the tools that are out there that that can help you do what you want to do, that are more automated, can really be helpful to get a lot more of this information and this art that we've got on our computer hard drives and on our phones, out in a meaningful way.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of photographers will argue that and say you're not a real photographer unless you're doing everything automated and you're manual and it's all f-stop shutter speeds and ISO and all that. Julio's looking. Julio's getting uncomfortable.
Gearing up. I'm gearing up.
Julio,
go.
I know you subscribe to that, right? You're not a real photographer unless you're shooting on M, right?
Dude, you're not a real photographer unless you're on P for professional.
Oh,
No, I mean, how you get to the end result is not as important as the end result always. But the thing is, like, you could use multimedia. You don't have, like, anybody that knows me knows I'm a big proponent for video. I mean, I've preached it to many glossy, glazed eyes at Imaging USA, and I'm not going to video, I'm fighting video. Like, I've done it.
Yep.
I've taken all the arrows, but you could do it with stills, and a lot of the work I'm doing now is just stills. So if you think about it, and you don't have to have a lot of stills either. So maybe you're gonna document your favorite coffee shop. My buddy that runs a website called Americano Mondays does this amazing job. He's super into coffee, and he takes his Fuji X Pro 2s and he goes into these high-end coffee shops around the country, and he'll, you do, like, you only need 10 or so good images. You make an establishing shot just like you would if you're making a film, but you're shooting stills. Overall establishing shot of the business, beautiful photo. Maybe it's a timed exposure, people walking by, whatever. And maybe there's a detail shot because the door handle's made by hand or something cool like that. Then an interior shot, a shot of the barista making their coffee, a shot of the coffee itself, then a cool portrait of the barista, like without holding coffee, just a beautiful classical portrait, and then maybe a couple other shots, and there's your story, basically, of the customer's perspective at the having the coffee at Manana Coffee in Austin or whatever.
Right.
And maybe you do a selfie in the mirror of yourself having a coffee. I mean, you don't have to get, like, they're serious, like, I'm serious about making good work, and then there's, like, I'm serious and I'm anal retentive. You don't have to be that way. You can, but I mean, you could still have fun with telling the stories and make serious art because you're serious and passionate about your art. It doesn't have to be crazy. So don't feel like, and if you want to go tell a story with your photos, you have to make it difficult.
Yeah, it does. It definitely doesn't have to be difficult. It could be.
Yeah,
it could be
10 photos. You're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something around the house. So, like, hey, I'm gonna practice my storytelling skills. I'm gonna document how I hard boil eggs. Right. So first I do this, then I do that, then I do this, then I peel them like this. You could do mundane type things to practice the overall beginning, middle, and end of a story sandwich, if you will.
And that's where the intention really builds, right? So say you do the eggs, and then you're like, I think I want to do this again, and I want to get a better photo. So you go to your local farmer's market, and then that story starts to evolve, right? And now you're like, I bought this egg from this person named Kim, and where does Kim get her eggs? And, oh, I see Kim raises, she's got her own chickens. Oh, Kim, I'm really interested in where these eggs came from. Can I come photograph your chickens and how you do the work and all that? And then it just starts to take on a life of its own. Before you know it, a year or two later, you got enough just beautiful images. You go on Blurb or SmugMug or some place where you can make a book. You spend a weekend doing a layout for a book. Boom, you got a book. So it can start with something simple like that, like, hey, I'm going to document the process of my omelet in the morning or my coffee, and that can spark the passion. You don't have to wait for the passion to come to you. You don't be like sitting there like in bed, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I got an idea for documenting eggs. Just like what you said, start simple, and then it will grow on its own.
That's good. That's I want to thank you for that, because I tend to be way more complicated than I need. Same. And just that sense of, it's okay to put a single photo that I put a caption on. I don't have to have audio. I don't have to have it married with all the other photos I took that day. Maybe that shot of that the homeless camp, despite all the work that I went into it expecting a complicated or a more multimedia presentation, there's some wonderful individual images in there, and that can be put together with stuff, words that I type up in 30 seconds. So if I get there, I will remember this conversation, and I'll say, doesn't have to be perfect. So
No,
that's
and
a good reminder.
I think that's huge. And I'm reminding of, we do these critique sessions in the TWiP Pro community every week. And it's interesting, the images that I remember the best in those critique sessions are the ones where the photographers took a minute to write a little bit about the image when they post it. It doesn't have to be a whole paragraph. It could be something like, I remember one photographer posted a shot of a scene that he shot relatively recently after his dad had passed away. So he put that shot up there, and then it was his memory of that event. And that made the shot, which was an okay shot. It was actually a really good shot to begin with, but it added another dimension to it. So whenever I look at that shot, I think of that story. And it was just a couple of lines, and it takes just a couple of lines of words to add, it's free, right? To add another dimension to the viewer so that they can understand what you were doing when you shot that. Like in the case of eggs, yeah, maybe not, who cares? But in the case of like the homeless camp that you're talking about, Craig, or something downtown, or something that may need a little bit of kick in the butt in order for people to understand what you were thinking and what was going on in that shot. We have text now. We can add text. You don't have to just give someone a photo and say, "Hey, I scribbled something on the back." You can put a whole narrative underneath a photo to give people context. I don't know.
Yep.
And if I remember right, I don't have an X Pro 2 anymore. I did for a while. I thought I could actually, after I shoot a photo, record a voice note, and I think some Nikons can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of, while you're in the moment, basically take that one strong photo and record, oh my God, it was blah, 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 the sky, or the smell of the earth, or whatever it is that, and then you got basically your, you can distill that later on, or you can take that audio piece and do something else with it. The reason why I've become so simple now with my photography, because I was on the other end of the spectrum. Like when I came out to see you, Craig, what was it, 3 years ago or something? That's when I was really heavy in the cinemagraphs and augmented reality and 4K
I remember
video.
that. Mm-hmm.
And that stuff's, all of that is just like loads of fun. It's loads of work. And I would come back from these trips and I'd be like, oh Lord, I have like 200 gigs.
I can imagine.
I'm so beat. And wait, I got to make cinemagraphs now. And I'm like, oh no, hell no. After a while, I was just like, dude, it's so much.
Yeah.
So that's I learned from my pain.
Learn from my mistakes. Yeah.
The pendulum swings.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I want to take a minute to remind the listeners and the watchers and the chatters that after this next segment, which is Picks of the Week, we're going to be doing the Q&A. So if you have a question, make sure you post it in the chat box if you're watching this live, and we will get to it in just a second. Before we move into the Picks of the Week, though, I want to once again thank our sponsor for this episode, and that's our friends over at Format.com. Format.com/TWiP will allow you to get a 1 month free subscription, or a 1 month free trial with no credit card. And then after that, you get 25% off if you decide to stay with Format.com. So head over to Format.com/TWiP and give them a try. All right, guys, let's dive into the Picks of the Week segment. This is the segment where you guys get to recommend something to the TWiP audience, as long as it is somehow, even tangentially, related to photography. Craig Strong, I'm going to let you go first, man. What is your pick of the week?
Well, my pick of the week is the Westcott Lunagrip. And I don't have one here, and even if I did, it'd probably be too big to fit here. But it packs. It's basically a soft box without sides that allows you to just take your shoot through reflector. There we go. And it just suspends it out with a couple of three tent pole legs and gives you a grip to hold your speed light. You can put 2, maybe 3 speed lights in there to get more power. And it's just an amazing portable light that you can carry around or put on a light stand. And it makes for some really good location, very portable, getting there. And, the wind can't blow it around because there's no sides to it. I mean, it blows it around a little bit, but not nearly as much as a full-size softbox. And I use it with a 42-inch shoot-through reflector, and it's awesome. So.
And that little thing folds up too, doesn't it? Doesn't it fold
up?
Yeah.
Yeah, it all goes into the same bag that the 42-inch reflector goes into. So it's just a little bit thicker than what you're used to carrying around. And it's an amazing.
I think I have one of those.
Light source.
I think Kevin Kubota turned me onto those things. Those are.
Yeah, that's his product, and
that would explain why he started talking about it. So.
Yeah, it's his brainchild.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, it is really good. I vouch for it. I think it is awesome because it does fold up into nothing. It's like one of those, like a reflector, but it is. I think the one that I have is it's sort of rounded triangular with a handle on it where you can position it wherever you want or shoot through it. Or it's pretty awesome. I love it.
Yep, that's
cool.
That's my pick.
All right, that's perfect pick of the week. All right, Julio Shorio, what is your pick of the week, man?
I'm gearing up. It is the ready. It is the Fuji X Pro 1.
Nice. Christopher Berry in the chat room is probably doing a jig over there somewhere in Arizona when he heard you say that. The X Pro 1, huh? Why?
The X Pro 1. Actually, I went and I searched for the cheapest X Pro 1 I could find, and I got it with this baller 23 1.4 for like under $1,000. It's in great shape. Yeah. So here's the thing. You think about like the X Pro 2 is cool, and I'm sure the next one will be great, but we've been so far past the point of good enough, like for the longest time. When the X Pro 1 came out, I think it was 2012, I had a pre-release version from our good old friend Will Crockett. He loaned it to me from Fuji, and I hated it on a level 1 to 10, a 10, and I loved it on a level 1 to 10 to 10 as well. Like because it was just so beta and the autofocus sucked, and I was like, but when I did get it right, the images were just phenomenal. And that was maybe like 1 out of every 500 shots. So that's why I ended up mostly with Micro Four Thirds, is because they're so fantastic to use and they're very versatile in lens selection, whatever. But I was looking around on eBay just for something that I could shoot with. That I was like, no, well, maybe they've got the bugs worked out of the X Pro 1. And the nice thing is, the firmware, it's as far as it's going to go. It doesn't
it's
have
not changing.
No, it doesn't have features I don't need. Like I don't need Wi-Fi anymore because I shoot RAW, and then I use my the card reader if I want to put it in my iPhone, put it right in the iPhone. It's got Adobe Lightroom and CC and Classic have the color profiles built in, or you can make your own profiles now. Like all the bugs are worked out. The only thing is that if you want a camera to shoot sports or certain types of photography, it's not for you. But for street photography, for a camera you take with you everywhere, if you want just a smaller camera that's got a great image quality, man, you can't beat the price. I got the body for under $400.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That is crazy.
The body, I'm like, dude, I bought another one too. It's coming from Canada for $279. $279 I'm like, dude, all day.
It's a great time to be a photographer.
So
I love it. Cool. All right, I have a pick too. Thanks for that, G. I have a pick too, a really quick one. So I'm in the middle of doing a review and a screencast tutorial / review of this piece of software. It's called PhotoLemur, PhotoLemur.com. And what it is, it's a lot, too much for me to go to in this pick, but basically it sort of uses AI to look over your image and then makes strategic decisions on how to make that image better. And then it gives you control over the changes that it made. So it's almost like a smart auto, but a really, really Stephen Hawking type smart auto in there. It goes in and digs into your image and does some really cool things. I'm not even sure what it does. Like, it's like examining all these different dots, and then it comes out with something that's better on the other side. So I'm in the middle of testing it right now, but I wanted to make it my pick to have you guys try it out too, because it's actually pretty interesting, their approach to how they make a relatively mundane, or what you thought was probably an okay image, even better. So definitely check that out. We'll link to it. It's called Photo Lemur, and it's at photolemur.com. All right, guys, it is now time to bring the audience into the show. This is the Q&A segment where we get to answer the questions that have been flowing in from the chat room. The first one is from Stephen Scharf, and Stephen says, yes, the question is, how do we capture the attention needed in the flood of images that folks are bombarded with? No longer do folks just get Life magazine in the mailbox. How do we capture attention? Julio, I'll throw it to you, man. You can have this one. How do we capture attention?
There's a variety of ways to capture attention. I guess it really depends on whose attention you're trying to capture. I mean, in 2007, 2006, my images were really visually aggressive, and I still wasn't getting into the ad agencies that I wanted to show my work. People were like, oh, we want to see your work to be really edgy, or they'd be like, it's too edgy, or it was. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get your attention. So I did a series of orgasm portraits.
I remember those. Yes.
Yeah, they're called Faces of Ecstasy. They were one of the very first viral things on the internet. And the thing is that they were fully clothed. They were real. You could tell if you find the images there. If you see them, they were real. They're on Behance. If you look me up on Behance. And then to promote them, I bought 100 spoof blow-up dolls from China. And 100 of them, like, I mean, dude, so many boxes of blow-up dolls, you wouldn't freaking believe. And I would mail those out to agencies, and then when I would show my book at agencies, I would inflate one, and I would walk in, and I had vinyl stickers of my logo, and I put it right on its ass, so it was like an ass tattoo. And I would walk in with these blow-up dolls at these really stuffy agencies, and they'd be like, "Oh my god!" And I got attention. I got a few jobs out of it, but that's just one way to do it. I think that, again, to go back to the comment I made earlier about your community, it doesn't have to be the entire planet. It only needs to be, even if it's like a few hundred people, or even a few dozen people. If you're shooting and you're self-expressed, the work will find people if you're showing it. And if you're, and not just showing it, like putting it up on the internet and hoping for the best, but like talking to people, like where you can actually like shake their hand, like person to person, going out to finding where their creatives are, maybe going to galleries, and it'll come up. Well, what do you do? I'm a photographer. Oh, well, what do you shoot? Well, I did this really cool series on eggs, and where did eggs come from, and so forth and so on. And that's kind of how you build your buzz on that. And then of course the images have to be strong to back that up. They have to be curated in a way that tells a story. Your presentation needs to be nice, but don't let any of that really stop you from going out and promoting. I mean, everywhere I go, I carry business cards with me, and everywhere I go, if it's the grocery, I'm at Trader Joe's. By the time I leave the checkout line, I'm Julio Shorian, I'm a photographer. Like everywhere I go. Yeah. If you could be like at God, I almost said Tom McKenn's for shoes, but you could be at freaking like Walmart for shoes, wherever you buy your kids' shoes, and and they're like, you're buying these little $50 shoes that'll last like a week, and you're like, hey, I'm a photographer, and you just never know, man. You have to be relentless with that, or buy some blow-up dolls.
That's another one.
That's been done.
It's been done. Yeah, we gotta tack that onto your name. What was it? Dung beetle hates the environment. Blow up dolls to agencies.
Sometimes I like crap,
Vinyl ass stickers, I think, are in there somewhere.
Oh my god!
Hashtag vinyl ass stickers.
All right, guys, move on. Next question is from Uncle Inflammatory. Uncle says, agreed, but I really believe there's a level of desensitization that has occurred and it is more prevalent now than ever. If it's not sensational, no one pays attention at all. Craig, in order for us to create images that people pay attention to, do they have to be over the top and sensational in some way?
No.
No, they don't. Yeah, end of
So
line.
I would say that try your hand at sensational, do the sensational, get people's attention. I think I just had a conversation with my friend Ken about this, that so many photographers are influenced by people who have been doing this for very little time but are great marketers, and it ends up being this kind of descending spiral into, well, I have to keep doing something more and more sensational. And there's been a lot of scandals in the photography industry of people plagiarizing, using other people's
Yeah.
images, combining images and saying that they're real. like like it the problem with sensational is that it ends up taking all of your attention. Be willing to do that. Be willing to do what you need to do to get the attention, but then figure out, who are you? What do you see of the world? And stop thinking about what's going to get that attention, and rather, what do you want to say?
Yeah, yeah. I think you hit it on the head. It's, what do you want to say? What's the message you're trying to convey? Even if it's a mundane message or some sort of heavy message, start with a message.
And each of us has a completely different perspective. Our worldviews are slightly different. Our experiences are different. And if we can look around and say, okay, what about this scene or this time or this family or this day what do I notice? And
Yeah.
if you notice that and you care about that, how do you make an image of that? How do you tell a story about that? And that's the beginning of sharing what you uniquely can share about the world with the gift that you have of photography. I mean, this is a gift that we have. I mean, this technology that is 150, 170 years old, um, you know, most humanity had to they had to be extremely, like, talented and trained in order to create an image that reflected reality. We don't.
Right.
And the learning curve is so short, even compared with film. Forget about realistic paintings from the pre 1840s. But this is a gift. What are we going to do with it? And if we can share what we see of the world, um, in our unique way, and be and not have to get into that trap of, I have to be sensational, I have to do it the way people are going to pay attention to it just because that's what's out there. I think that's the first step toward actually creating something meaningful and real.
Awesome. Very well said. All right. We're gonna take a couple more questions here. The next one up is from John Paul Portitz. He says he needs a gear recommendation from Julio. He says, I'm planning a move to Micro Four Thirds from Nikon DX because I feel my D90 size is too large and it's not that big, but the lenses are, and I feel I don't carry my camera around enough because of this. What should he do, Julio? Where should he move? Where should he put his money?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you want a smaller camera system overall and you want a mirrorless system, Micro Four Thirds is awesome. Micro Four Thirds is probably it's got to be the overall most developed system available of, I think, of any camera system, mirrorless or otherwise. If you think about it, you got Panasonic and Olympus and a few other companies like Blackmagic making a variety of types of cameras. I want video. I can get a video camera that shoots raw video. I can get a GH5 that shoots cool videos and stills. I can get a G9. I can get an Olympus. Like, there's so many different amazing camera bodies, and then all the lenses more or less work with each other. And you can go small and you can go big. Like I have an EM5, EM5. Sorry, I get the names mixed up. Mark II, and I got the smaller prime lenses with it, and it's tiny. And I can carry it everywhere. You can put it in a bag, and So yeah, if you want small and you want potent, Micro Four Thirds is an excellent option. That's the problem with the Sonys, is that you have a few small lenses for their full frame cameras, but the moment you want any really good glass, their lenses are huge. They're bigger than Canon lenses, and so then you got like this giant aluminum bat on this tiny little camera body, and you're like trying to balance it. It's difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say Micro Four Thirds is a good move. I'm a big fan of buying gently used cameras, but I tell you, even if you buy, I saw an EM5 Mark One used for like $500.
Wow.
You know, and because there hasn't been a big jump, a big leap in sensors.
Yeah.
You know,
I
so
see
you
what
can
you're doing
buy-
here, Julio. You're capitalizing on the gear acquisition syndrome that photographers have, and you're picking up the trail behind them as they lust after the next new shiny thing.
dude, because I've done it so many times. I'm like, damn, I just sold this camera X. I lost $800.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. So now I'm just gonna buy used for a while. But seriously, you can buy used Micro Four Thirds cameras and get for a really good price. But just keep in mind when with Micro Four Thirds, like any camera system, but especially with mirrorless, to get good quality lenses. You don't have to spend a ton of money, but there are certain lenses that are better than others. Just do your research, and get some good quality lenses. And yeah, you'll be super happy with the system.
Save a couple bucks at the same time. All right, 2 more questions. This one's for you, Craig. It's from Clive Moss. Clive says, the mundane story of today will likely become a wow story in 50 years. The question is, how do we make our stories last in the digital age? If your target audience is your great-grandchildren and beyond, how do you get to them?
Whew. I think scrapbooking is a great way. I think that the photos that my wife puts in our scrapbooks are likely going to be the majority of what our kids have to look back on. And it is a problem because who knows what's going to happen to all our videos on YouTube? Who knows what's going to happen to our stuff on SmugMug? It's currently privately held and we pay money for it, but what happens when that sells? What happens when, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the economy, and that's not practical anymore. Mm-hmm. I've got a lifetime membership to SmugMug. It's great. Love it. I put everything up there. I make sure that my wife has all access to that and passwords so that if something were to happen to me, she's got it. Mm-hmm. But it does feel like those stories, and I totally agree, today's stories that are mundane are going to be hot news in 50 years. They're going to be the greatest things ever, to look back on. And it could just be that simple photo that you managed to put some words to that had a story, or the photo that told the story on its own, that was a nice quiet moment. But because of the styles, because of the atmosphere, because of the fact that we had air to breathe, it was important to it meant something. It means something more than it does today in time. But I'm not sure that I have the answer to that, but I do think that prints have their place, and while most prints probably do get thrown out eventually, go in the garbage, there's something you can hold, and what are you going to do with that? And so scrapbooking is one of them.
They're priceless. I mean, my dad, I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and my dad made me, for some reason, the custodian of all the family images, and going back through those images, they're priceless. Right? I mean, they're just, you look at the styles and that were happening 50, 60 years ago, and it's priceless. You're saying, Greg, the things we capture today that we would think are mundane and like, whatever, that's McDonald's, and McDonald's may be gone in 20 years. So you're like, hey, look, there's a McDonald's in that shot. People may care about it.
All we've got is In-N-Out Burger. What's going on?
Yeah. Or all we have is rat burgers to eat that we kill out in the desert. Don't get me started on that. Mad Max, man.
Let's go watch Mad Max.
Let's go. All right. Last question here is from Stephen Scharf. Stephen says, is making prints the key to effective digital storytelling? Ironically enough, I'll leave this open to all of us. Is it? Storytelling? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I would say on the storytelling side of it, making a print is great. Like we were just talking about, is romantic, and it will stand the test, depending on the print, will stand the test of time. It's not going to go away when XYZ company goes away because your bits were on their server. You have the physical atoms, but at the same time, your audience is severely limited to who can see that. Whereas digitally, Julio, I know you want to talk. Digitally, the planet is the audience for that particular shot. So, maybe it's both. Maybe you print it and put it online. I don't know. What do you think, G?
Yeah, I think both, for sure. Well, if you think about I mean, I think about it in terms of as a commercial photographer, like your average art buyer at an ad agency, or an art director at a magazine, they're being bombarded with tons of imagery every day, and a lot of mailers too, like a lot of printed mailers. But if you were to send now, especially in such a saturated digital moment in history, if you send a beautifully printed book to them, and I when I send my portfolios, they were 11 by 17. They were huge. They would go inside of a self shipper by Tenba. I wish they made them still, but they don't. But basically, I would ship the portfolio with a FedEx label stuck on it. They would open it up. They'd get their blow up doll and they look through it, and then they turn the label around, put it right back, and FedEx would get it. But you give a beautifully printed, crafted book, especially if it's one that you make yourself, not like a blur book, but one that you go to like Pina Zingara and you buy the cover, the acrylic cover or the metal cover, and you print it yourself, and it's just gorgeous. They're going to stop and look at it. They may not look at it for long, but they're going to look at it for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
It's contrast, right? As photographers, we like to have rich shadows most of the time and nice highlights. It's contrast, right? If everything was just kind of grayscale, just without going into the shadows of the highlights,
you want to stand out. Yeah, you're right.
So if with everyone just send me a link to your work, they said, actually, I'm going to send you a big ass portfolio. It's going to blow your mind. They're going to look at it. They're going to look at it.
Yeah. Especially if they've been just like kind of scrolling through Instagram all day, and they're they're used to those shots that are kind of the junk food of photography, and then they get your thing, and it's this big heavy book with physical prints. So you have to turn the page and all that. Yeah.
You know what I do? I don't think they make them anymore, but Impossible used to make that Instant Lab where it looked like a Polaroid 600 on the bottom, and you crank it up and you put your phone on the top. I make Polaroids of street photos, and I put those in with a handwritten letter on really nice stationery that I got from Moo, the Lux stationery. And I mail those out to potential clients and said, hey, I'd love for you to look at my portfolio. Here's a Polaroid, enjoy this. And then I'll get emails from people. I get text messages because I put my cell phone number on there. Hey, thanks for the Polaroid. That was really cool. I get so much positive feedback. And that Polaroid, by the time I print it and put it in with the card out in the mail, it's $5, but man, what an impression that makes. And I put some of the cooler, more quirky photography. Like I have this really rad photo of this pimp that I found, I met in Miami, and he's all in blue. It's beautiful blue. And he's got his cane with an Anubis on it. Guy just looks just awesome. So I photographed him, and that's one of the pictures. I'm like, here's a portrait of a pimp. I hope you enjoy it. And people love it. And that don't cost a whole lot. So a print is so different from what you would expect, or dude, get a disposable camera and rebrand it.
Oh, good grief.
Nobody's going to do that.
You can just spray paint it.
Nobody's
Julio,
going to do that.
I've been tracking the conversation with Julio Shorio, by the way. I got some notes here. So we've got
sometimes I like crap.
We've got the blue pimp with the cane. We've talked about dung beetles. What did we talk about?
Sometimes you what?
Sometimes you like crap.
Sometimes you like crap. What was it? Blow up dolls and orgasms. Yeah. So all that.
Potato.
Julio Shorio, small camera, big picture. If you want more of that. That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone in the chat room for joining us and submitting those awesome questions. That was really fantastic. That was a good chat. And thanks to you guys, both of you guys, for coming on. This has been a great conversation. Julio Shorio, Smallcamerabigpicture.com, obviously. Any other places where you want people to go?
No.
All roads lead to smallcamerabigpicture.com, right? Very cool. All right. And Craig Strong, what about you, man? Where would you like people to go to catch up with you and check out Lens Baby stuff?
Don't go to Kodak.com. Go to lensbaby.com.
No Kodak. No Kodak. Come on. We got to add to the floating plastic in the Atlantic. Come on.
All right, you guys.
You can still see some blue in there, man. Come on. We got to get rid of that.
I know, right? We got to fill that up.
We got to fill in that hole. It's not finished yet. We got to complete it. All right. And folks that are watching this, if you want to stay up to date with all things This Week in Photo, just head over to thisweekinphoto.com/subscribe, and you'll subscribe to our podcasts. And you can also, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click that bell to be notified when we release new episodes. And with that, gentlemen, it is time to take that lens cap off. This is TWiP.